Welcome one and welcome all to the greatest show of them all. It is the NFC East Mixtape volume. Who cares? You can listen to this podcast wherever you get your SB Nation NFC East blog podcast across the SB Nation universe. You can also watch us on the Blog of the Boys YouTube channel or the Bleeding Green Nation YouTube channel. If you do either of those things, you will see or hear the faces and voices of myself. I'm RJ Ochoa from Blog on the Boys. He is Brandon Lee Gowton from Bleeding Green Nation, and he is coping. BLG, happy Cowboys got the dub week.
I prepared a statement for this
jeez.
game. Are you ready? You can't interrupt. You have to let me get through it.
I just want to say, are we not gonna dilly dally? We're not gonna do any kind of. I had a dilly dally thing ready to offer.
Well, I can. We can dilly dally. I can get to it later.
I was just really quickly. I wanted to offer before we get to the football because I can't wait to get to the football. Who is the person that picks when you have to do the CAPTCHA exercise on a website and it's check which ones of these have traffic lights or crosswalks or whatever. Who's the person that picks those photos? You know what I mean? Who's the person that's only a human would be able to discern this information in this photo? I want to understand who's the person that picks those photos. That's really all.
The other thing with those is how sometimes I feel it's kind of there's a gray area because it'll be select all pictures with this thing, and then sometimes you'll see there's a little bit of that thing. It's do I click that? Right. Does that count? Is that it's very technical, and then it doesn't work. You need to do it again. It's what's going on here? Make it obvious enough where there shouldn't be a gray area.
Exactly.
So that's a good note. Other thing
okay
I had was
you have a dilly-dally thing.
Unpopular opinion, which I'm not a fan of saying. Just say it. Just say your unpopular opinion. Don't preface it. But that being said, I'm a big fan of a cloudy day, an overcast day. I don't want the sun. I don't need the sun. The sun can get out of here. I don't know how this makes sense, but to other people, but it does make sense to me. The sun makes me anxious. I don't want to be in the sun. No sun, only overcast, cloudy days. Everyone loves the sun, and I don't get it. So there's my take to begin the show.
I would offer that an overcast day is a calming thing. So I wouldn't agree that the sun is anxiety inducing, but it isn't calming the way that an overcast day is. I'm with you. Actually, sent to my wife the other day. We went on a walk with the dogs and we were pushing our son in the stroller. I don't need it to be super cold. I love this time of year and the holidays and I love the cold, but I just want it to be light jacket, light half zip, as long as it's overcast. I just want the vibe. You know what I mean? I don't need the actual 30-degree weather.
I'm not a big cold guy, although I always maintain that you can always get warmer if you have the resources, obviously, in terms of you can always layer up and whatnot so you can handle it better as opposed to the summer where if it's hot, there's really only so much you can do at a certain point, depending where you are. So I will admit that, but not a big fan of the cold.
All right, enough dilly-dallying. Let's get to your statement.
Okay, statement.
Do you have a physical copy? That's all my only question about it. Or
no,
is it
reading off of my phone here.
Okay.
This was written on December 10th, Sunday morning at 11:09 a.m. Eastern Time. Here you go.
All right, last question. Is this your article that you wrote where you were pre-coping, or is this a different thing?
I said, once I start, you can't interrupt me. The Philadelphia Eagles are going to lose to the Dallas Cowboys tonight. It's going to suck. Losing always does. Losing to the Cowboys, even worse. Losing to the Cowboys 1 week after getting blown out by the San Francisco 49ers, incredibly not fun. There's going to be a lot of discourse about how the Eagles are frauds, and it's not going to be totally undeserved. But here's the thing. It's going to be okay. Or at least it might be. The reality is that the Eagles were never going to go 6-0 in their 6-game gauntlet, parentheses TM. They're currently 3-1. They needed to go at least 3-3. They could still very well go 4-2, which have been viewed as a big success entering this stretch. So I am far from ready to say the season is over if the Eagles get beat by the Cowboys, especially when becoming the first team to repeat as NFC East champion since 2004 and getting the number 1 seed is still very much possible. The Eagles losing this game does not have to be an insurmountable indictment. It's quite possible that they simply find themselves in a really bad spot. For the third straight game, they're playing a team that has a rest advantage over them. More specifically, it is the second straight game where their opponent is coming off a mini bye week, and the rest disparity is exacerbated by the Eagles playing an unusually high number of snaps. Over the last 3 weeks, Philly's defense has basically been on the field for the same number of snaps played in their first 4 games combined. They're tired. And even if they weren't, a fully fresh secondary just does not match up great with the Cowboys' passing attack right now. Dallas is playing at a very high level. They also just need this game more. With a win, the Eagles essentially, parentheses, though not officially, clinch the division. The Cowboys aren't suffering that fate in their own house, in a building where they've won 14 straight and 5 straight against the Eagles. I'd love to be wrong, and I'd certainly at least like to see this team put much more of a fight up than they did against the Niners. But the truth is, I'm not too worried about this result. I know it's important, but it has more of a quote-unquote house money feel to me. If the Eagles continue to crater after this one, well, then the panic truly begins. Until then, I'm not writing the Eagles off.
So you filibustered here and spoke about the Eagles out of turn because the Dallas Cowboys lead the NFC East thanks to their 33-13 humiliation of the Eagles on Sunday Night Football. I have something to read. It's much shorter. It's an anonymous message, but one I received, and I received several along these lines, so shout out to the mixologist. This one said, please do not let BLG off easy with his pre-cope, woe is me, pre-game pessimism, feeling sorry for the Eagles and making excuses. It's kind of what that sounds like. Now, to be clear, you did lock up the Cowboys, not just on the mixtape, but on the SB Nation NFL show on Friday. Actually, that's where you locked them up, to be clear and specific. I thought about this a lot because obviously this was a lot of fun. It is a lot of fun. And obviously the Cowboys don't control their own destiny with regards to the NFC East. The Cowboys, after they got embarrassed by the 49ers, really responded in legit fashion. Now, it was a tough game, but they did respond well and beat the LA Chargers. The Chargers. I mean, okay. So then you have to admit the Cowboys are a top tier team. They have an MVP quarterback. They have an amazing head coach. Like it can't be that this team is trash, but that they're better than the Chargers. Like so one of these things has to be true.
Who's saying that? I didn't say that the Cowboys are trash.
No, but I mean,
I literally just picked them to beat the Eagles.
I would argue that they didn't respond. They played worse than they did against. They didn't score a single offensive touchdown, and their 3 superstars on offense all fumbled. I mean, there was a lot of quit happening.
I don't fully agree with that. I think they played better against the Cowboys than they did the Niners. And the 49ers game, they didn't even turn the ball over. And
we're not talking about the Eagles, though. We're talking about the Cowboys because it's their turn.
You just brought up the Eagles.
Well, I know, but they played the Eagles. They humiliated the Eagles. They shut down the Eagles.
You said they played worse than they did against the 49ers. That's
I
not
would argue
true.
that not scoring a single touchdown is playing worse than, scoring, one at least. I mean, I can't remember 2. Was it? I think
they played worse against the 49ers. I don't think that game was ever truly,
I think they played smaller against the Niners, but I think they played worse. And I think that it was a lot of quit. And if there is a house money feel, I think that's a really big trap for the Eagles. But again, we'll get to them. This really never felt in doubt for Dallas. Even after the Fletcher Cox, Jalen Carter, strip sack, fumble return, like the Cowboys came out and just kind of dominated the Eagles. And again, dominated at home. And really announced themselves. For anyone who believes or thinks that they can't beat a good team or whatever, I don't know. Like, I don't know what else the Cowboys have to do to prove it to anybody else at this point of the season.
The best team they've beaten is coming off 3 straight games of rest disadvantage. So, I mean, there's that. I mean, that's not insignificant. And I said that before this stretch started. That's not a cope thing. I've been saying that. It's insane scheduling. Name another team that's had to play 3 straight games on rest disadvantage.
I don't need to name another team. But
let alone... Yeah, because it doesn't exist, let alone against teams that are like we were told incredibly high leverage.
So they should be able to survive. And I want to read a tweet. This wasn't my point, so I don't want to steal it because it was a great point from Vok Lombardi. Vok does a great job creating Cowboys content here on YouTube for our YouTube audience. Everybody go subscribe to Vok's channel. Tweet this out. The Eagles have had tough games versus bad teams. The Cowboys don't play the fourth quarter versus bad teams. If Philly is fatigued, it's their fault. And so,
That is
again, woe is me. Like, oh no, we had to play a million
no.
snaps against the Bills. Then beat them. Like, then don't build yourself or dig yourself a hole in the first half that you have to like waste all of your energy coming out of. Like, that's not something that should be used as some sort of like excuse for the Eagles.
No,
and again, this is about the Cowboys. They continue to kick ass.
I've said that. I'm not saying this is oh woe is me. It's only a victim of this. I do think though it becomes a bit of a vicious cycle where like they're bad, they're not playing well, and then they're getting tired, and then they're getting tired.
Again,
it's like it feeds into itself.
Your job here is to talk about the Cowboys at this moment.
You're exacerbating the issue here. So I think the Cowboys took advantage of a team that I expected them to, that is down. I think the Eagles are, it's fair to say, that they were not as good as their 10-1 record indicated. I think that anyone would have always agreed with that at that point. At the same time, I also think they're better than these past two games. I really do. I don't think they're as bad as they are the past 2 weeks. I think that's fair to say. But the Cowboys beat a team that is down, and they did what they should do and kick a team while they're down in a game where they had to win. They had to win that game in their own building. Again, the division's over, basically, if they don't win that game. They came out, they played strong from the jump. They allowed that fake punt, and it was like, okay, is this a spark for the Eagles? No, it wasn't. The Eagles were driving early on. They forced the turnover. It did seem to me like, okay, maybe this Jalen Carter touchdown is a comeback. Probably not. Maybe. No. Close the door. So they did everything they needed to do. I can't really say much more than that. Other than Brandon Aubrey is unfair. It shouldn't be routine for a kicker just to be making 59+ yard field goals, but it's
I don't
reality.
know if you knew this. He set the NFL record for most consecutive field goals made to start a career at 19, and he's at 30. I mean, like, again, like it felt like, oh man, is he even going to be able to get to 19? Like, he has been incredible. The one downside to the Cowboys, being on national television all the time is like you hear the same stories like from the broadcast crews that want to tell them. So it's like, whoa, Brandon Aubrey went to Notre Dame. Whoa, Brandon Aubrey was an MLS draft pick. Wow, haven't heard that a million times before. But I mean, I'm very happy for him and that he's getting a lot of love. On All-Pro, I think Brandon Aubrey should be at this point in time. He hasn't missed a field goal all season long. There's a lot of people talking about Rookie of the Year. Let's slow down a little bit. I get the point.
They're not going to give Rookie of the Year to a kicker.
I'm just saying, like, if Zach Martin couldn't win it, then I don't think that Brandon Aubrey should. But again, that's a different conversation.
I don't think a kicker is ever going to win Rookie of the Year.
A kicker won MVP once upon a time, so let's just relax. Yeah. But speaking of,
it's not when was that? What year was that?
Speaking of, though, Dak Prescott, now the front runner for MVP, and said after the game that he felt like he didn't play his best game. I don't think he was trash talking, but just was kind of, boosting his team up, saying, I think we could have scored 50 points. I kind of agree with him. I don't think that Dak played his best game, and it felt like the offense stalled a little bit in the second half, and Brandon Aubrey obviously saved them. But that's what's really exciting, obviously, is that on a quote unquote down night for the MVP frontrunner, they still scored 30 points and never really had the game in doubt.
Eagles defense has been struggling in a really bad way ever since the second 49ers drive in that game, because they allowed a touchdown drive on every other drive except for the Niners like kneeling whatever at the end of the game or whatever, or not trying to score. And the Cowboys picked up right where the Eagles left off in that regard, in terms of just having no answers and like big time drives too. First drive, 10 plays, 75 yards. Next drive, not a touchdown, but 13 plays. That was after the fumble, 37 field goal. Then another 12 play, 75-yard touchdown drive. And then that was a really impressive drive, obviously aided by a penalty I've literally never seen.
That was cool to hear the explanation on how that was possible. You know what I mean? Like how like somebody could be penalized for two things simultaneously. I didn't know how that could, when they were like, this is rare, I was like, oh, this is about to be like some ridiculous loophole. But it did make sense, as unfortunate as it was for you.
Never seen that before. No one has ever been like, oh yeah, I've seen that penalty before. Never seen that before. It's also very funny that Keely Ringo still allowed the catch as well. You committed 2 penalties. You allowed the catch. Also, that was his second ever NFL defensive snap ever. So like, just a really tough initiation. And for the Cowboys to start at their own 25 and have 148 on the clock there and go down, and it's like, you know, in your minds, I'm sure you're thinking, Cowboys fans are thinking, all right, get a field goal here, nice, like cool, good. No, scored a touchdown. And yeah, so basically at that point, Eagles are down 6-24, and it feels like the game is over. The feel of the game is that it's over. The Eagles do get the ball to start at the second quarter or second half, so it's like, okay, if they're alive at all, they have to do something here, and that's where AJ Brown fumbles. So pretty much just DOA at that point.
You can go back and check. We tweeted from Blogging the Boys at the beginning of that Cowboys possession. I forget exactly what the written tweet was, but it's something like 2-minute Dak Prescott coming up. Like that's when Dak is at the absolute peak of his powers. Like you obviously, again, you are thinking like just get points, especially if you're not getting the ball to start the second half. But and I know this sounds, you know, obviously just like hindsight, but I had really complete and total confidence that Dak was going to go score a touchdown because that's just who he is right now.
Even when they were down. So here was the thing. Here was like
after the sack, I was a little concerned.
Right. Because it was 2nd and 16. Reddick gets that's like a big time sack there that potentially kills the drive. And then they pick up 10 to set up 3rd and 6. And then that's when the penalty happened. And that was a big penalty, man. They moved from the Cowboys 40 to the Eagles 35.
Well, I was told that the Eagles were completely and totally disciplined, which is why they weren't drawing any penalties early in the season. So
that seems like a straw man.
But yeah, and the AJ Brown thing, dude, man, he lit a fire under Stephon Gilmore. Gilmore has been really good. I would argue. Now, you've heard me say like he's been disappointing, and it wasn't really his fault just because the Trayvon Diggs injury changed the pressure that was associated with him. But the Deron Bland emergence really kind of stabilized what the initial kind of plan or expectation or idea philosophy was. That was the best game he's played, I think, in like 5 years. But certainly as a member of the Dallas Cowboys, like the strip sack on AJ Brown was great. The fact that he held AJ in check a week after switching over to cover DK Metcalf. I mean, you know, Stephon Gilmore just owns Ole Miss, I guess. And the 4th down stop on Devontae Smith was just ferocious. I mean, what an incredible game from Stephon Gilmore.
This was if you look at the box score for this game, you see AJ Brown was targeted 13 times, had 9 receptions for 94 yards. You're like, oh, you know, pretty solid game, right? At least not a bad game. That doesn't tell the story. I mean, obviously the fumble, again, when it happened too, if you were going to have any kind of rally, that just killed it. He had the play where he kind of just lost the ball. And that's kind of tough because, he was looking left and he has to turn it around to the right towards the sideline. That's a tough play to make, but he's AJ Brown. Like he should be expected to make that play. And he also had the penalty on the Eagles' first drive there where, they're driving, they have good momentum. And he gets called for the pick play. And instead of 1st and 10 right outside the red zone there at the Cowboys 21, they're knocked back. And then that's when next play, Jalen Hurts takes off running and fumbles. So, yes, he had a much worse game, and in part because Stephon Gilmore did his part to, not totally keep him, obviously, again, he had 90-something yards, didn't totally shut him down, but certainly prevented him from totally wrecking the game.
The Devontae Smith failed 4th down attempt. I mean, it was a great play by Stephon Gilmore, but Devontae had no chance. And that's like, to me,
Throw was late.
Well, the biggest takeaway for me on the Philly side, the Cowboys, I think takeaways are really obvious. Just to kind of wrap that up, Dak is the MVP of the NFL right now. There's 4 weeks to go. CeeDee Lamb is CeeDee Lamb is CeeDee Lamb's a top what receiver at this point? Like, I know that like some circumstances are weird. Like Justin Jefferson's had a different year, and like Jamar Chase is down, Joe Burrow. But CeeDee's like a top 3 receiver right now at worst. I mean. This was
3
at worst.
What do you are you counting Justin Jefferson because he's
that's why I just said that Justin Jefferson's had a weird year with the injuries, and Jamar Chase
because he's still a top 3 receiver.
I don't know. That's like it's a weird question. I admit that, but like this is a supernova.
Are you like power ranking the receivers?
I don't know. I'm saying is this is the most like power that a Cowboys wide receiver has had. Amari was great and had that incredible run initially, but the 2012 through 2014 version of Dez Bryant was so unstoppable. He had the 3 touchdown game, obviously, in Philly. CD is operating on like that level of whatever right now. It's pretty fun to watch. And Jake Ferguson has come along, established himself as a top whatever tight end. The Cowboys offensive line's playing really well. Micah Parsons, despite getting held all the time, ran through Lane Johnson and had a sack. That was super impressive. Stephon Gilmore, as mentioned, super fun all the way around. Which, again, takes me to my main Eagles takeaway is I don't know how you're not, man, I'm not saying that you're not necessarily are, but like if you're an Eagles fan, I don't know how you're not like your biggest panic thing isn't about Jalen Hurts. Because what are you doing throwing like 10 yards short of the sticks on that fourth down to Devontae to kind of bring up that point? Like, I mean, I heard our buddy Aiden Powers, obviously Aiden and KMS do the Birds versus Boys pod. He had a great analogy that I'm certain has been made before, not to take away from Aiden, but he mentioned how the Eagles offense is just like a power hitter in baseball. Like they don't draw walks, they don't steal bases. You know what I mean? They just it's all or not, and they strike. KMS brought up Giancarlo Stanton as his example. So, I mean, Kyle Schwarber is another example, although to your point, kind of offers a little bit more. But yeah, just somebody who's like, I don't know, like a 220 hitter with just like 25 home runs and like a billion strikeouts. Like that's what Jalen Hurts kind of feels like right now. It's just, let me try the home run to AJ Brown or Devontae Smith. If not, I'll run around and hope for the best. But it does kind of feel like I heard Robert Mays and Nate Tice talk about this on the Athletic NFL show. It feels like teams are totally fine letting that happen and kind of trusting themselves to rally and tackle. I don't mean to say that there's a blueprint, but it does feel like Jalen Hurts is not able to overcome anything else. Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not going that far, but your thoughts?
I think it's a weird thing to parse through right now because you get some people who are like, I thought Hurts played a pretty good game. And I think he played a little bit better than the box score would indicate when you consider some of the high leverage drops that happened. But, he did turn the ball over. And I think, again, in a crucial spot there on that first, like that the timing of that turnover really matters to me. If you're the Eagles and you go down and you score a touchdown, right, to match the Cowboys, like you're feeling good about yourselves. Instead, you fumble there, you lose it, and you're like, here we go again. If the vibes are terrible at that point when that happens. And again, it's his 15th turnover this season. It's just way too many. So, I hate the idea that I hate hearing, well, the quarterback's not the reason why we lost. If the quarterback isn't the reason why you won, he's probably the reason why you lost. Like at some level, and that might be oversimplifying it, but guess what? You pay the guy $51 million to solve a lot of problems. And it's not fair. The expectations aren't really fair, but that's the deal. That's the gig. Like that's what you sign up for. That's what the money is for, as Stats likes to say. So, I definitely think he could have been better. He was hurt by certain things. I think that there's a lot of criticism. I know this of Brian Johnson, the Eagles offensive coordinator. I've said all year he's getting way too much criticism. Not to say he's been perfect and not that he's above criticism, but this is Nick Sirianni's offense. I don't think Sirianni is getting enough heat when it comes to that element of the offense. And there's people there's polls out there oh, should Nick Sirianni take over play calling? Why? You really loved what you saw out of his play calling early in the Eagles 2021 season? No, it's just people want to change for the sake of change. They want Brian Johnson fired. The Eagles offense, they did not score a touchdown. That's a big issue. That being said, I don't think it was they were hopeless. They were lifeless. They had 6.2 yards per play. That's better than the Cowboys, who are at 5.3. Now, again, you didn't score. That's a huge issue. Why didn't they score? Is it Brian Johnson's fault that AJ Brown fumbled and Devontae Smith fumbled and Jalen Hurts fumbled? I don't think it is. I think the players who typically don't fumble a lot, AJ Brown, I think that's his first fumble this season. Devontae Smith has fumbled 2 other times in his 47-game career. Jalen Hurts, that's been more of a running theme, which is a problem. So I think the offense, there's hope for the offense. They're not obviously clicking right now. I think they can get better. Unfortunately, for the defensive side of the ball, which I think did adjust in the second half and made adjustments, and that's nice to see, but they're just kind of flawed at some level. And I think when I talk about the team being tired, that's where it really manifests the most, because the pass rush it's not effective right now. They've played a billion snaps. Again, that's not their fault because they can't get off the field on third down, but also I think part of the reason they can't get off the field on third down is because they're tired. So that's the vicious cycle of it. So it's a team that is certainly playing bad football right now, but I still think they're a good team, which is silly that I have to justify that and qualify that for a team that is 10-3 and literally above where I had them at this point in the season. I look back at my win-loss prediction. I had them at 9-4. They're 10-3. So what should I'm supposed to say they suck and everyone should be fired and the season's over? How? Why am I supposed to say that?
I don't think
they can
that,
still win the 1 seed. They can still get
so
it's not even like a small chance. It's like a 30% chance.
I think you're oversimplifying that point a little, because I don't think anyone who's being rational is saying they suck. And while it's
Oh,
fair to okay,
yes,
while
they
it's fair
are.
to say that they've over delivered on your preseason win loss prediction to this point in the season, I think it's the way that they have arrived at 10-3. Now you've written this a lot and talked about this a lot. Like they started the gauntlet obviously very well. They beat Dallas. They had the bye. They beat Kansas City. They beat Buffalo. But those 3 wins, I mean, were what, a handful of moments. The Cowboys one is, I think, the most difficult one to move the goalposts on, to give them a loss. They were a Marquez Valdez-Scantling drop from arguably losing in Kansas City. And they were, what was the Jake Elliott field
There
goal
was still time in that
distance?
game. That
I
wasn't
know,
like
but
the
I mean,
game
again,
winner.
if we're oversimplifying, just to kind of generalize and make a point, how long was the Jake Elliott field goal in the monsoon or whatever? It was like
Like
59 yards.
59. But that's, I mean,
Yeah.
Brandon Aubrey just
So
hit
like, I mean, the point is
259
like,
plus yard field goals.
it's taken these like Herculean efforts to win those games, and then
Sure.
the two
But those are
competitors
good
who though
teams.
are the Chiefs and Bills good right now. Like I know historically they
Bills are
are, like in
definitely a
recent
good
history, but
team.
like
If
I mean,
everyone wants to
I
hold point differential and DVOA against the Eagles, then you have to give it to the Bills, who the Eagles beat.
I agree with you. I agree with you. All I'm saying is it's not as mighty of like what recent history would indicate. Like, oh,
Well, you said
Chiefs
you're
and
back in
Bills,
on the
but
Bills anyway.
that's a little bit of a different point, but you're right. But so my point is like I understand people feeling like it took all energy and might to win these games. However, they ultimately happened, and then the first true like measuring opportunity got waxed, got run over, got bullied, got beat down, and then didn't even respond well to that. I mean, didn't even score an offensive touchdown after that, and in the process relinquished, albeit temporary, but relinquished control in the division and
Did
relinquished
not
outright
relinquish
control.
control.
I
Relinquished
mean, again,
standing.
in a literal sense, temporarily,
It's not control though. They literally did not
okay,
relinquish control.
relinquished temporary standings in the NFC East and opened the door for a control to be taken. Now the Eagles don't have any room for error in the NFC East until if the Cowboys lose, obviously. And they did relinquish outright control for the 1 seed, which is apparently
Yes,
incredibly
that is
valuable
true.
for this team that is super tired and sore and
I
exhausted.
agree.
So, I mean, if you're not gritty and tough enough to survive all of that, like that would raise fair question marks.
Yeah.
So I mean, I get panic and concern. Again, I don't think it's fair to say they suck. I had them 3rd in my power rankings this week. I don't know where you had them. No, I
Right.
think I had them
I don't think
4th.
now is the time to crush them. If they lose to the Seahawks, if they drop these games, that is the time. That is absolutely the time. I'm saying it now, and I will feel that way. I just don't feel like now is. I think people are. There's a term that we used in BGN radio, the original version back in the day, called preaking out, like pre-freaking out. I think people are freaking out a little bit. I think they're preemptively doing the freak out thing. And I'm not saying they can't be criticized, but I think panic level is a little too high relative to what it should be. And I think people are kind of being a little bit spoiled, honestly, and taking it for granted, and also not contextualizing just how hard it is to actually get back to even have a good season after you lose the Super Bowl. It's a very hard thing to do. It doesn't mean, again, you can't criticize things. It doesn't mean you have to be all happy, but there's just no perspective. And that's fandom. You lose, the season's over, feels like the world's ending. But I'm not there. And if people want to be there, that's fine. It's their choice, but I'm not going to be there, and I'm not going to feel bad about being there.
I think it's fair to have different levels of panic or frustration or disappointment. I think you would agree with this with different sectors of the team, right? Like you could be more mad or more concerned about like this, that, or the other, while obviously having more confidence in this, that, or the other. I'm going to bring up this question in a way that you have brought it up before. What does Nick Sirianni do right now that's helping the team? Because when Mike McCarthy wasn't the offensive play caller, it was what does he do? And so, like in a game that was all about responding and being ready to roll, he's not calling offensive plays. And you mentioned obviously some people want to see him get involved there. He's not doing that. Like, what does he do? He didn't even have the team ready enough to score an offensive touchdown. He showed them who was it talking trash ahead of the Niners game. That blew up in his face. And obviously didn't have them prepped to face the Cowboys. And he has been enough of a, we'll call it character to, make it a lot of fun for Eagles fans whenever he's winning. And now my sense is, you can tell me if I'm wrong, obviously based on your pulse of the fan base, it feels like if anyone is like the face of the fan base's frustration, it's Nick Sirianni. So what does he
Well,
do?
the coach always is,
But what
because
does he
it's
do?
the easiest person to root against.
What is he offering to make the team better right now?
That's a
Because
fair
I don't see
question.
it.
I'm not going to defend him in that regard, in terms of he's not being aggressive enough. I think there's an opportunity to try to at least set up and go for a Hail Mary at the end of the first half there. Didn't do that. That's been consistent in terms of him not being aggressive. I thought he should have went for 2 when Eagles did get that touchdown there by Jalen Carter. Didn't do that. Again, it's not like it matters in the end, but still, it's just like, try to get a spark, manufacture an edge somewhere. And they did go for it on that 4th and 8, which I actually did like. Some people didn't like that late in the game, or 4th and 6, whatever it was, with the Devontae short of the sticks thing you mentioned there. Obviously, didn't work out.
But you didn't even drop a play for Jalen to throw beyond the sticks, or Jalen is playing poor enough that he's not even doing that.
Right. And but the decision to go for it was correct. So, but yeah, I mean, I agree. He's not giving this team an edge right now. He's been outcoached. That's the reality of it. He's been outcoached by Kyle Shanahan, Mike McCarthy in back-to-back weeks. That's a big issue. So I'm not singing his praises right now. I do typically guard against over-criticizing of the coaching staff, because, again, people don't care about coaches. They care about players. And it's much easier for players to accept that the coach is bad and then it is their favorite player whose jersey they have is bad. So I just get annoyed with that being always the thing. It's always the coach. And then, because it goes back to Doug and people wanting to run Doug out of town. Doug was the problem. He was the only problem. You got rid of him. Everything was fixed. Oh, now the next coach sucks too. And then the next coach is going to suck after that. And then the next coach after that's going to suck. So it's just tired. I'm so tired of the coaching thing. I just think it matters way less than the amount of energy and time is spent on it. But all that said, I do think Nick Sirianni is not doing a good job right now.
The word fraud being thrown out a lot this week, and you mentioned it in your pre-prepared statement, and I did see that you did publish that, obviously, before the game, so Brandon can at least stand on that. I know that that's a heavy word, but I think it's literally accurate, in at least the way you define it. You said that the Eagles were not as good as a 10-1 record would have indicated. So the record was fraudulent.
But I think also that was going a little too far in terms of like people acting like they were like a 5-win team instead of a 10-win team. I think you're looking, more like 8-win team, like a couple wins worse. It's not like you lose all of your 1-score games or whatever. And also, that's not even been the issue. People were like, well, the Eagles were playing with fire and now they're getting burned. That's not even been the issue the past 2 weeks. It's not like they're losing 1-score games. They're getting blown out. That's a different story.
I'm looking for one last tweet here, so give me a second. Buy me some time. I know that you're in the mood to do that.
I meant to look up the context. I had the artitweet here, and then I lost it.
I'm ready if you are.
Okay, you got it.
Your buddy Sheil Kapadia, I always mess this up, tweeted this out on Sunday night. I'm sure you saw, and I'm sure every Eagles fan saw and hated it. Since 2000, there have been 106 teams with 10 or more wins through week 14 of the NFL season. Mm-hmm. Among that group, the 2023 Eagles rank 103rd with a point differential of plus 21. 103rd out of 106. Now, getting blown out, 42-19, 33-13 in back-to-back weeks, really pushes the point differential, obviously.
Also, not playing like two of the, in theory at least, and we'll get to this, the two of their lesser opponents still in terms of the Cardinals, who are bad, and the Giants, who... We'll see.
Don't tempt the Tommy DeVito Giants. We'll get there. Also, Paul Hembo tweeted this out on Monday morning. Teams with 15-point wins this season. Well, I don't have to read a whole list, but the Cowboys have 8 wins, 15 points or more. The Niners have 7. The Eagles do not have a single one. So
Eagles
they haven't.
The best record in the NFL against winning teams this year.
That's fine. But again, they've pulled off these miracles, seemingly. And that's where I think the fraudulence has kind of been born. That was never like sustainable. And we talked about it. Like, it was never something you could define. Like you said, like, it wasn't like one possession games or things like that, but like you ripped the Vikings last year. And that's the comp that everyone's coming up with. I don't like that comp personally.
They were negative. They were 28th in DVOA. Where are the Eagles in DVOA?
I just said that I didn't like that comp, but you ripped them from a point differential standpoint. You talked
they
about
sucked. They had negative point differential, and they're like 28th in DVOA.
You ripped them. The Eagles are plus 21 with 4
and also the Eagles, the Vikings did not come into the Vikings. What cachet have they built up? Kirk Cousins won playoff win. Eagles just went to the Super Bowl.
I said a lot of people were quoting Shields' tweet and saying like 2022 Vikings. Like I don't like that at all. Like I don't think that's a fair comp. I think the Vikings were better than they got credit for last year. I'm well on record with that. But
And that's the thing. Yeah, if you're
but
saying that, then
no,
you're
no,
saying
no.
that's a
But
good
like,
thing.
so I wouldn't put this Eagles team there. But the wins, obviously the Bills win, the Chiefs win, the first Cowboys win to a degree, the Patriots win. Like you can come up with the Commanders win, the first one. Like these were all these like miracle things that they pulled off that I think that they deserved credit for. But like that was never going to be able to be something that you could sustain. And the wear and tear of it all, obviously from a just physical toll has shown up. But like I don't think that's possible, and I don't think that's possible against the juggernauts of the NFL and certainly of the NFC.
Eagles are 10-3. What do you think they go in their final four here? You want to predict their
obviously
record?
the greatest chance of loss is next week. And they, for all the people who think the NFL hates them, they got a big old extra day of rest because the NFL flexed their game to Monday night. I mean, Seattle was cute against San Francisco, and certainly was stout against Dallas. Is it impossible? What's the line? I haven't looked.
It's -3.5. Eagles -3.5 on the road.
I mean, obviously, I want the Seahawks to win. Geno was great the last time we saw him. I know you were really upset with the way that game ended, but that's not impossible. I think that the games become more impossible as it goes on, right? Like I think the Seahawks is the least impossible one. I think the first Giants one, if they're still rolling by then, which and define rolling however you want.
You think it gets easier? You're saying?
Yeah, exactly. Unless Kyler has like a stupid game, like you could find the weird like that's the way they lose quality of each one of these, and it really just comes down to like Seattle going off and then. Weird
just
Giants
for sake of conversation, like what do you think they go? Just
I'll say 3-1 is really conservative.
Okay,
I mean, it's really easy to say they're 4-0.
Okay, let's say so just make your statement. You say they're 3-1.
I'll say 3-1 just because it's the
okay.
NFL.
So they would be the first team to lose a Super Bowl and win at least 13 games since the 1999 Titans. Like that's really impressive. That's like the standard. I just think people have a very unrealistic standard for this.
But they define that standard. Like you can't like whine about the standard after it was like, oh, they're this perfect team. Give them their flowers. They were one of the best teams.
Yeah, but they were always going to be worse.
That was the self-defined standard. I mean,
everyone said they were going to be worse, but then they're worse, and no one likes that they're worse. It's like. That was always that was the deal. That's what you signed up
reality.
For.
Like, well, that's the pain of losing a Super Bowl is if you don't get it done. Like,
I agree.
You might never do it. I mean, like
that's what I always said. I said like I think too many people are just we'll be back next year. No, it doesn't work like that. It's not that simple.
I mean, the only thing that I feel like I was really wrong about was AJ Brown. I just continue to be wrong about AJ Brown. But like, I mean, we talked about like it was impossible that Jalen Hurts would ever have a season close to last season. You know what I mean? Like it was so like on one end of the spectrum that I don't even know that he's regressed to the mean. He might be a little bit further past the mean, which is maybe a positive sign for the future. But yeah, and Nick Sirianni too. And if the NFL outlaws the tush push, I mean, who knows? But yeah,
it's not going to change anything.
I mean, I don't know. Like that's a different conversation.
I think it was Baldy. Baldy had a good stat that like pre-tush push, the Eagles were basically just virtually as unstoppable on their sneaks. So
well, when Jason Kelce retires, it's going to be over anyway. So
well, that's fair. That's a fair point to wonder, but I mean, we'll see.
Okay, are we ready to move on after we take a break?
We're ready to take a break.
Welcome back. That was a wonderful break, Brandon. During the break, you made a house of cards. What did it look like?
Oh, I can't do that. I wish I could. I'm not really technically skilled like that. I'm skilled at many things. Believe it or not.
Who I want to give a shout out to? This is not an ad. I want to give a shout out to Lego. So over the summer, remember when I went to California?
Yes.
We went to Legoland. We took my son, and it was really cool. And we bought a Christmas tree. And like the goal was like, oh, we'll build it every Christmas and we'll put it in his room. And it's this really cool set because you could either build one big tree or you can build two smaller ones. And so I was going to build the two small ones and put one in his room and one in his bathroom. And I was, finishing it because this was kind of complicated. And I was missing some pieces. And I was like, well, what happened here? And I went to Lego's website and kind of filled it out and just put in the number for like the set. And I was like, hey, I'm missing these pieces. And they're like, oh, we'll replenish them. No questions asked. Like, what great customer service. That's awesome.
That's a nice positive shout out by you. What's the most, like your most favorite Lego creation ever?
I built a car that I have in my office
Wow.
when I was a kid. It's like a big, like kind of like
You should get it.
I don't want to. It's up tall.
Next
Well, I can get it.
next
1 second.
episode. Okay, RJ's going to get the car from the top of his shelf, which he said it was tall, so maybe he can't reach it. He has to get a stool or something. He's coming back. He's putting his headphones on here.
Keep in mind, I
He
built this when I
is
was like 10, and it was the coolest thing in the world at the time. And it was kind of like what I imagined, like a van that like superheroes would ride around in.
it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's really just kind of tall. That's really all it is.
Can you see the
But
front? We didn't see like the front end of it. Sorry, the other. I thought that was the. I
yeah,
thought
there's
the back
like a
was the front.
cockpit. There's like a main cockpit, which is personless right now, and then I've got
That's
the
cool.
person on the side that can like handle whatever duties need to happen. Then I got
Does
the
it
person up
actually?
top.
Do the wheels work? Like, will it actually roll at all?
Yeah,
Okay, it's hard to see, but
yeah. So
cool. If you're not watching the NFC East Mixtape on the Bleeding Green Nation
You
or the
missed
Blogging
out.
the Boys YouTube channel, you're missing out.
Okay, the New York Giants have a thing now. That thing is Tommy DeVito.
Tommy DeVito. It's a
yeah,
little much. How much everyone likes it.
well,
But
you're
I
from the
think
area, so you'll probably
nationally,
appreciate it more than
Giants fans, I think, soak it up. Like, I don't begrudge them at all but like, I think the national, everyone loves his agent, and it's like, I get it. Okay, I understand. It's cool. Like, or it's funny. I get it.
You know what I'm really
cool.
sick of?
It's fine.
I'm sick of people equating things like this to Jeremy Lin. Okay, like I know that happened and that was a thing, but like we have other things. Like you don't have like not everything is Linsanity. You know what I mean?
Well,
Like
also,
you don't.
Jeremy Lin was like amazing.
I
He
know,
was
but
really like Tommy DeVito hasn't been amazing. He's been
you know what I'm saying
solid.
though. Like anytime like a moment happens, people are like, "Oh, this is a Jeremy Lin." Like no, not everything is that. But anyway, this was a really great kind of thing overall in a lot of ways. One, it's fine to if you're a Cowboys or an Eagles or a Commanders fan, I guess maybe not Commanders, but to objectively enjoy this fun thing because the Giants are out of contention from a practical sense, so you don't have to really worry about them.
Well,
They're in they're in the hunt, so whatever, but they're not winning the Super Bowl is the point. They are hindering and hurting their draft stock. They have the 9th overall pick in the draft now. Like they're gonna go through it. We've been talking about this another season of gunk and not even have a top 5 pick
quarterback of the future now.
Well, that's the other thing. Like, I mean, maybe they wind up with Jaden Daniels or something, but like, I mean, the Tommy DeVito thing will be super annoying at training camp, right? Like for Daniel Jones to deal with at the very least. Like the first sign of Daniel Jones' struggle, it's the Mike White phenomenon. That's if you're looking for a comp,
the Brock Purdy phenomenon,
or the Brock Purdy phenomenon.
Found our Brock Purdy.
Exactly. So it's funny in that sense if you're not a Giants fan. It's also like just a cool story. And if you're a Cowboys fan, dude can kind of play. And they have 2 games left against the Eagles. I mean, like it would be the funniest thing ever if he took down the Eagles at least once.
He's definitely settled in. I think if the version of Tommy DeVito now plays the Cowboys when they did, like I think the game's that game was just not even a game at all. I think that was his first NFL start.
Correct.
Yeah, so like I think he's kind of settled in a bit. I still think the Giants lose, to be clear, but I'm just saying I think he would have made it a little bit more competitive at least some point in the game. Yeah, I mean he hasn't been again like lights out amazing. No one can stop him. He passed for 158 yards last night.
I think he had the highest QBR in Week 14 of all quarterbacks. Okay. I don't know if I'm just saying like yeah. I mean I'm just saying like it isn't just like he had 2 plays or something. Like there are there's legit meat on that bone, so to speak.
I think, we're seeing enough here to see he's a credible NFL player. Again, I think he has the potential to be a very nice backup. I still think, starting, let's chill on that. He did also, by the way, have 10 runs for 71 yards. And he looks fast. He looks like a good runner. So yeah, just kind of like a fun player. I thought Wan'Dale Robinson looked really awesome in this game. I feel like he's a guy who I'm just kind of watching a Giants highlight or just watching a game, kind of not even fully paying attention. He pops to me a lot. I almost regret not making him my most underrated player. Although I think Hodgins has been okay. Hodgins had a touchdown this one, probably not great, but yeah, I mean the Giants are fighting and they play the Saints next. Having a win over the Packers is extremely meaningful, obviously, as it relates to the tiebreaker. If they can beat the Saints, who could also be in that wild card contention there. They're still on the out. They're likely looking on the outside looking in, but they're not dead. They're not dead yet. Again, I don't like you, I don't think they're winning the Super Bowl. So I don't know what it means, even if you do make the 7 seed, probably at very best. Other than, I guess, like you feel good about Dable going into year 3.
Yeah.
But okay, that's fine. And
I,
to be fair, I want to give him credit because you and I were ripping him and saying, I don't care if you have Tommy DeVito. I'm like, you still have to make more out of what you have. You
that's
can't
really
tell
fair.
me you were making the most out of what you. And this speaks to we were right about that, and now he is doing that. Let's give Dable credit for that. He certainly is having them play. He is maximized more now. But yeah, I don't know what it means for next year still.
Yeah, I thought I don't know if it was a report or whatever that came out about how Robert Saleh, again, I might be like making this up, like it was all over NFL Twitter. You can corroborate if you want, but how Robert Saleh reportedly um texted Woody Johnson like prominent head coaches records without their starting quarterback or whatever it was, and it was like, dude, like that is so lame. Again, I think it was a Jay Glazer report. I'm not totally certain. So
Jeez.
but like it, like that was such a lame move to me. And that I told you that was why I was so impressed with Mike McCarthy during that first season when Dak Prescott got hurt, because that was something that Jason Garrett never did. And so I do think that is a really like a really interesting social experiment of a head coach. Like, hey, what kind of lemonade can you make when you're in this tough situation?
Mm-hmm.
And kudos to Brian Dable. Like, for real, it's been a tough season for him. And if anything, this just proves that Daniel Jones ain't it. Like, if there were any Daniel Jones stanzas left, like that Dable can make music, so to speak, with Tommy DeVito to a small degree, albeit. But I mean, that is a really impressive thing. So you're right. Like, you do have this boost of confidence in him. You don't have to worry about that and all the Bill Belichick stuff. You have a folk hero who, at the very least, is going to be doing sports talk radio in the region for the next 30 years. I mean, like, and you get to have fun. Like, I mean, I said this in our postgame show, because obviously, the vibes are great with Cowboys fans. Like, when your football team is doing fun stuff around Christmas, like, there's nothing like it. Like, it is the most fun thing in the world. And so, this Giants season has been so awful. So yeah, like, totally soak it up. Get yourself a Tommy DeVito jersey. Like, I completely and totally agree. And he's helping you realize that players, not that we didn't know that Wando Robinson had talent, but he's helping you identify other aspects and elements of your team. And that's a really, cool thing. And you got to win in prime time. Like, you're not a joke anymore against a playoff contending team. You're one game back. Yeah. Like, everybody was talking all this stuff, fairly so, about the Packers entering Monday night. And now the Giants are one game back of them. They will play a critical role to a small degree in the NFC East race and playoff picture, I guess, because they play the Saints. If they beat the Saints, then I think they cement effectively that it's Tampa or Atlanta who's going to host Dallas or Philadelphia in the wild card round. And obviously they play the Eagles twice and can potentially impact things in that sense as well.
MetLife seemed pretty loud too, even though there were a lot of Packers fans. It was also loud when the Packers were scoring, to be fair. But still, I thought that that's the loudest I feel like I've heard MetLife in a long time. They seem pretty juiced up for the Tommy DeVito experience, as they should be. It's fun. Again, I'm not trying to rob any joy away from, even if like it doesn't mean positive long-term success in terms of ruining your draft order and everything. And I still believe that's ultimately the most important. I think there is something to be said for having short-term fun. Like, it's not irrelevant. It does feel nice in the short, like that's a nice thing to actually feel for once, especially when your team has been terrible. And this whole season, like we said, it's been terrible from the jump, from the gut punch of losing 40-0 and never really having like a feel-good moment at any point. They have that now, and Saquon's rolling here a bit. So it just feels like the Giants are not like, a threat all of a sudden, again, in terms of contention, but they're like a real team right now. And that's a graduation from what they were for a lot of this year.
Yeah. I know we're not rooting for Saquon, but again, because of how far out of contention they are, it is kind of cool to see him like thrive in a big moment. You know what I mean? And play like I know he had the fumble, which was a bad look, but like, it was just kind of cool. Like, this is what Saquon Barkley was supposed to be. And if these are his final games with the New York Giants, like, if they can have some fun in the process, like, by all means, tear it up. So, and beat the Eagles twice. That would be cool. Actually, my last question: are you more scared of the Tommy DeVito Giants than you ever were the Daniel Jones Giants?
Yeah, sure.
I don't blame you. I mean, like, that's fair. Like, they have a pulse with him as opposed to with Daniel Jones.
And I just think you can count on Jones turning the ball over or something going wrong with him, where DeVito has just been a little bit more efficient and there's some moxie there. It's like a Taylor Heineke kind of energy. It's not that he's the, most intimidating quarterback ever, but the thing I always said about Heineke was that you go into a game with him typically thinking like you at least have a puncher's chance. Like you're not the favorite, but you think like, okay, there's a scenario where, and he's going to make it challenging. Even he didn't always do that in every game, but there were a lot of games where he did. Even when they would lose, like everyone brings up the Buccaneers playoff game. That the Commanders kind of gave the Bucs more of a fight than people thought they would. He kind of just makes you uneasy, and I think DeVito might be that Taylor Heineke kind of player.
He beat the Eagles, then he got the Jordans to prove it.
Yep. I knew you were
okay.
Bring that up. You love
the Commanders were on bye, so they are now squarely in last place at 4-9 because the Giants are 5-8. Obviously, think about it: the Giants and Commanders combined do not even have as many wins as either the Cowboys or Eagles do individually. So that's just kind of the state of the NFC East. But time to loosely preview Week 15.
On the Commanders, I think they are going to lose out. I think they're just going to lose out. Other than maybe the Cowboys game, depending if they rest their starters, but I think any other meaningful game they're going to lose out.
I agree with you. I mean, we're about to get to their game, but I just want to say, like, it's always sad when you get to the end of the bye weeks because it's like, man, it just started. You know what I mean? And now we're here. No more bye weeks. You know what I mean? Like, and now it's
the season does really go by fast, I have to say.
The Washington Commanders are on the road this week to face the LA Rams, who you and I might owe another apology to, at least their head coach in Sean McVay, because they're rallying. They're playing some impressive football right now. They are 7-point favorites. The Rams are at home, the mighty SoFi Stadium, against the Washington Commanders. I don't know if you know this, Brandon. Sean McVay was once on the Washington staff with Kyle Shanahan and Mike McDaniel.
Could be like maybe the Rams don't cover because for as much fight as they have, there's still some flaws there. There's a lack of talent, and they're also coming off this very emotional overtime game. So maybe you have a little bit of a letdown here again. And the Commanders are well rested coming off of their bye, but I think again the Commanders are going to lose out. I think they're organizationally tanking. So I'll actually say it's more of a competitive game than the spread indicates. I say the Commanders cover, but they lose.
I think the Rams cover. I think, the hay's in the barn for the Commanders as far as their overall objective is concerned. Plus, I do believe in the Rams. Matthew Stafford is like balling out at this point in time. Like, I mean, we had the conversation, like, is Derek Carr the third best quarterback in the NFC at the beginning of the season?
I'm changing my pick. You're right. And I forgot about how bad their secondary is.
And I went to bat for Kirk Cousins. I think if all of them were healthy, Stafford is like fourth at worst. Like Stafford, I was really wrong on him. Like I really thought like this was over. Like he is playing incredibly right now.
Well, it was hard to parse the injury there.
Sure.
What to make of that.
But like Cooper Kupp's kind of back now. Obviously Puka Nacua, Kyron Williams. Like, I mean, like I do not want to be the 2 seed that faces the Rams. I mean, like I'd rather be the 2 seed, than the 5 seed in just a general sense. But like, obviously I'd rather be the 5 seed playing the Bucs than the 2 seed playing the Rams. Like the Rams could be the first 7 seed in NFL history to win a playoff game. That's all I'm saying. I did write that in my power ranking. So I did want to sneak this in here. I know you're not a big fantasy guy. Did you know that Sam Howell has more fantasy points this season than Patrick Mahomes?
I'm not surprised just because.
That's just crazy though.
But they've had so many passing attempts because of game script and whatnot. Like, yeah, I'm not surprised.
Well,
he also played the Eagles twice.
This game is one of 3 that are taking place in the afternoon window on Sunday. One of the other 2 is the Niners at Arizona. Goes without saying, we're all mixologists are rooting for the Cardinals, big time. But the third game, which will be like the one that, gets the whole country gets, is the Cowboys visiting the Buffalo Bills. Now this opened with Dallas as 1.5 point underdogs on the road. That has moved to 2.5. I hadn't even seen this. So a whole point.
That's not good.
Yeah, a whole point. The weather, why? I don't know, but the weather does not look.
That's like a major line movement.
I know the weather does not appear to be dire, at least at this. We're recording on Tuesday. Obviously, when you're playing in Orchard Park, like a lot of people assume it's going to be bad. It looks like just moderately cool. There's potential for wind, but it doesn't look like a crazy cold, windy day. Is all I'm saying. Buffalo coming off of a close win against Kansas City that the Chiefs were not a fan of, but an impressive performance nonetheless. And obviously, the Bills, we talked about this, are the bizarro Eagles in that like the Eagles were I think definitively not as good as their 10-1 record would indicate.
Mhm.
The Bills are probably definitely not as bad as a 7-6 record would indicate. They've had these really close losses where they've just kind of thrown it away in the worst possible way. And so I'm nervous. This is of the 4 remaining games for the Cowboys. This is the one I'm most fearful of. And a lot of that is because Josh Allen has the potential to obviously take over at any given time.
Yeah, I mean, we were messaging about this on Slack during the Bills-Chiefs game. Bills did not deserve to win that game with the way Sean McDermott coached at
Oh,
the
dude,
end.
what a horrible so I told you I'm kind of back in on Josh Allen. You know what I mean? Like I'd walked out a little bit. I'm kind of back in. I'm never coming back on Sean McDermott. Like, and I've been a fan of his, and I even said it was a lot of what he learned in Philly under Jim Johnson and how they terrorized Tony Romo. But like, dude, what horrible game management to not drain more time and to on the plus side of the 2-minute warning, like against Patrick Mahomes. How did you word it? You had a great wording. I don't know if you want to look for it.
In terms of like the team that did this against
Yeah,
you, in
yeah,
terms of
against,
you left too much time against them,
the
like,
specific team
yeah,
in the specific place where you committed, and that wasn't even an error. That was just like the way it
well,
broke.
it was an error that he didn't go for 2. I've said that. Like,
Okay,
people will
but all I'm
disagree
saying
with
is
that,
like
but
leaving
yeah.
13 seconds was not an error. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
that's my only point.
Yes,
But like
they
this
managed the
was
clock well. They did
right.
not manage the points well. They should have known that Mahomes might be able to do that and like end any kind of possibility that they could tie it and just go for the win there by going for 2 in that game. But in this game, it was also before the end of the the end of the third quarter there. Bills took over
Right.
after I think it was the Mahomes or Rashee Rice fumble maybe, and 30 seconds left in the third quarter. It's like, just run the ball, get to the fourth quarter, boom. And they ran 3 passing plays and they punted to begin the fourth quarter at 15. It's like, that might not seem like a big deal, but like you took 30 seconds off the clock when you had a lead.
It's a
Like,
big
take
deal.
more.
It's a big deal against teams that can score, right? Like it's not a big deal
Yeah.
if you're playing the like Patriots, but like if you're playing the Chiefs and in this case the
And
Cowboys,
they had the lead at that point in the game.
Yeah.
It's like, you have the lead. I know you're not like, in end of game mode because there's so much clock left, but like, just you're gonna get to the end of the game and you want as little time as available if you have the lead. Like, it's insane. They did so. Okay, whatever. They messed that situation up. Fine. Maybe again, you messed it up in the past. You messed it up there. It's like, maybe you finally learned at the end of the game. No, first down, whatever it was in that situation, the 2-minute warning, and they're passing. Just run. All you literally need to do is run the ball one time and either get down to the 2-minute warning or force the Chiefs to burn their timeout. Sorry, I'm spending a long time on this, but like, this is why, like, I think I'm going to take the Bills because of Josh Allen. I agree. But man, the McDermott thing is messing with me. I think I don't trust that. So I'll take the Bills here. I think the Cowboys have been playing well, but I do think, Buffalo is surging here. It's at home for them. I'll and it's also, it's not the biggest spread to cover, so I'll take them.
I was looking at the Bills subreddit and they were talking about this, like, how nervous are we, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And their fan base's mentality is similar to Philly's last week in the sense of like, they were like, this is not a must win game, but like, you really need it, now.
Yeah, because of out of conference.
Right. Now, you could certainly argue that Philly was in a much more comfortable position from like a playoff position.
Yeah, that's also not true for them because the AFC is very tight.
I agree with you, but I think that they might be feeling like because Miami lost and they still get to play the Dolphins.
Yeah, but you,
right? Like,
you want the division now.
I
It's
agree.
like, come on.
I agree with you. I'm just telling you what I read. That's all I'm saying. But
yeah, I get it. I'm not arguing with you. I'm arguing with their premise.
They
should be more motivated to win.
I saw David Hellman of Fox Sports, formerly of DallasCowboys.com, friend of Blog and the Boys. He tweeted out Dak going like shot for shot with Josh Allen in Orchard Park would, and again, presuming a Cowboys win, would like maybe be the best win of the Dak Prescott era, right? Like, especially given the like arc to this point, in the season for the Cowboys. This would be really big. Obviously, it goes without saying, and especially after Dallas just beat Philly the way that they did. If they went and handled the Bills after Philly kind of struggled to beat them again, it would reinforce all of these ideas. I'm going to take Dallas because at this point, I trust them enough. But like I said, this is the game that I'm most fearful of. I will be talking to our friend Jay Spence from Buffalo Rumblings. That interview will drop on Thursday throughout the Blog on the Boys universe. Very curious to kind of see how he feels about this team. He has been so down on the Bills as of late. I don't know if you've seen his tweets, but he's been pushed to say the least.
Their vibes have been bad. Let's be real.
And that's I'm going to bring this up to him, so people will hear it then. But do you remember the last Cowboys-Bills game? You might. That's why I asked. I don't know if
It
you
was in
will.
Thanksgiving.
It was Thanksgiving 2019, and they got destroyed. The Cowboys did, and I was in the tunnel as players were coming out of the locker room, and Michael Bennett, who the Cowboys had traded for that season, came in and was just like, I mean, tearing a new one in the whole team about like how
Yeah.
unacceptable this was and blah blah blah. And that was really I think break point of the Jason Garrett era. Not that it was like a stout era or anything like that, but that was when the wheels fell off. And then a week later, Dallas went to Chicago and got destroyed by Mitchell Trubisky. He ran for like 1,000,000 yards on them. And again, like it was very, very clear and obvious that things were, going south. And I feel like I tweeted this out on Monday, like the franchise is in a 180-degree different direction than they were that game. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like they are so, in lockstep, in unison. The head coach is so great, and as a play caller and the quarterback situation, like everything is, again, just the vibes are totally different, polar opposite direction. So I'll take Dallas because right now the Bills just feel like it just requires Josh Allen being a superhero, and I just don't know that can happen week after week.
I also worry about just, I always say his volatility cuts both ways. And I don't think people always talk about it in that specific way as always a good thing. Or like, oh, he's volatile. And that's bad. It is bad sometimes. And I worry about that in this matchup against an opportunistic Cowboys defense that can take advantage of mistakes. But it also is possible he goes supernova and runs around and the Cowboys just don't have any answers. I thought the Eagles, when they played the Bills, like defended him fairly well a lot of the time. And it didn't look like that because of all the production. But I think there was just I think they played well, and then he just made plays that they couldn't even defend. Like he just was making awesome plays. So
and that's
I
going to
do think,
happen. Like
yeah,
you have to accept that. Like you're not going to shut this
right,
dude out. And so,
yeah.
by the way, we glossed over the noon NFC East game, the Giants and the Superdome that you mentioned. The Giants are 6-point dogs on the road.
Give me the Giants, baby. They're winning. And this, what do you hang your hat on with the Saints? I mean, the Saints, their vibes have been bad. Bad aesthetic in terms of the style of football that they play. Why are you taking them? Because they just beat the Panthers, who are, like indisputably the worst team in the NFL, the most like hopeless team going into a given week of winning a game. Like, no, I'm not buying that just because the Saints beat the Panthers. Give me the Giants, although short week for them, so that's tough on the road. But I like them to win, so I'm certainly taking. At the very least, I think they cover, but I'll take them to win.
That's exactly how I feel. Like I'm not giving the Saints 6 points,
Why?
against anybody.
Why?
Like I
Why?
mean,
For what?
yeah,
What?
yeah.
What have the Saints done recently that makes you think they can do that?
I mean,
because they beat the Panthers. Okay, what else?
I'm trying to think of like a good Saints win this year. Like, can you think of a moment where you were like, that was cool?
They blew out the
Like,
Patriots 34-0. I mean, that's in New England. That's a good win. I know
right.
the Patriots have been bad, but 34-0 is like that's pretty dominant. But that's about it.
I mean,
They beat the
yeah,
Colts
they had.
38-27. That's like that's in Indy. That's not terrible.
I don't know, man. Nah, I'm out. So yeah, we'll take the Giants, which takes us to Monday Night Football. As we said, this game was flexed from Sunday, first ever flex in Monday Night Football history. So Joe and Troy are very happy. You said it was 3.5 that Philly was laying.
I think it opened at 4.5, but right now I'm seeing it 3.5.
I'm seeing it at 4 at DraftKings
Okay.
right now. So
I think part
Philly
of that,
favored by 4.
again, we don't know exactly what's going on with the quarterback situation yet.
With Gino, right?
Right.
So the point is somewhere between 3.5 and 4.5. I'm gonna take the points, but the Eagles win move. Because again, I thought the Seahawks kind of hung a little bit, just a teeny bit with the Niners. I don't know if you saw the Niners had over 500 total yards of offense, but I think they had 8 plays of 25 yards or more. I mean, so you're talking about 200 yards coming off of, a handful of moments that, were amazing. Like I'm not trying to take away, but like, and those things happen against the Niners. But I was really impressed with Seattle. And if Gino plays, I do think that DK Metcalf is probably playing the best he has all season. Jackson Smith and Jigba's kind of taken off. I mean, and if the Eagles offense can't show up, I mean, do I expect them to score a touchdown at least? Yeah, but like this is 2 weeks in a row where the Eagles offense has been flat. So I'm willing to at least take the points in this game, but I'll take Philly to win.
I don't think taking the points is unfair for a team that has not made it look easy a lot, but I do like the Eagles to beat the Seahawks here. Again, definitely want to see who the quarterback is before I like fully make a final prediction here in terms of not just the result, but how the game goes. Eagles have been outscored 75-32 in back-to-back weeks. Not good. However, what have the Seahawks done recently? They're 1-5 in their last 6 games. That's also not good. Do you know who that one win is over?
Don't tell
Or
me.
it's against?
1-5 in their last 6 games. The Cardinals.
It's in. Think about why I'm asking, or why would be relevant to this podcast.
Was it the Commanders?
The original Washington football team beat the current Washington football team,
and they barely did. I mean, they barely
overtime.
beat them. Yeah,
it took overtime. So like that's their one win in their last 6 games, and obviously they've been competitive. Like they got blown out by the Ravens. The Commanders game was the win in overtime. They had a lead against the Rams and blew it. They lost to them. They lost pretty like decisively to the 49ers on Thanksgiving. I don't think that game was really competitive. Cowboys game was close, of course. And then last week, I don't really think the game was ever like truly in doubt for the 49ers, but they did make it a little bit competitive there for a bit. So, I don't know that the Eagles are just waltzing in there. They haven't won in Seattle since 2008. Do you know who the quarterback was in that game?
For the Seahawks?
Yeah.
Seneca Wallace.
Yeah, good job. Yeah. So it's been a while. Of course, having to play Russell Wilson in Seattle was always pretty tough for the Eagles, our guy. But I think they bounce back, and I think they win. And Seahawks defense specifically has been struggling, as we saw with the Cowboys lighting them up. So I think the Eagles offense gets going, and they win.
Seahawks rank 16th in overall DVOA after week 14. So, I mean, you're getting a true kind of average football team right now. So that's why, like, I understand not being panicked about the Eagles, but so, like, because I think it's fair to say, okay, we got blown out by 2 top-tier teams in the NFL. But if you lose, a third game in a row, that one to, like, a definitively average team, then it's like, okay, well, sound the alarm.
Especially if it's Drew Lock.
Right. Okay, are we ready to wrap it up with some songs?
Let's add some songs to our NFC East Mixtape playlist, which you can find on both Apple Music and Spotify.
Rachel got hers in very early, and I'm upset about this. I'm happy about the charitable aspect of it, so chill out.
You booed a song that was designed for charity. Let the record show. A Christmas song.
Her submission was White Christmas, the version by Jason Kelce, Elaine Johnson, and Jordan Mailata, which I presume is available on Apple Music and Spotify, right?
It's by the Philly Specials is the
right.
Like,
but
the
I mean, I'm giving Rachel her credit. That's how she listed it out. So.
Right. I'm just saying for those who might want to look for it on their own, that's how you would find it.
I do think it's cool to release an album like that. Like, that's something that like this group of Eagles fans will like remember forever. You know what I mean? Now it would be
for a good cause, like a great idea, great way to raise money.
It's up there with like if you win the Super Bowl, obviously with like the Super Bowl shuffle. Like people, you know what I mean? People remember it in that kind of way, but they lost the Super Bowl, so it is what it is. But that is
there was a quote like Jordan Mailata had that was going around that like someone told him in Dallas that he should stop singing and focus on blocking more. And, I get it, but at the same time, it's for charity. It was also recorded last summer, I believe. Both of these albums were recorded in the 2022 summer, so I don't think it's mutually exclusive.
Well, good for them. By the way, I'm going to pull a Mark Schofield and mention a weekly radio hit that I do. I do a weekly radio hit in Australia with my buddy Jimmy Smith, and he always asks about Jordan Mailata. So, yeah.
It's funny how Mark does that, and like, but it's like every team. It's like, oh yeah, I do this radio.
Yeah,
hit
I do this radio hit in
Green Bay and Detroit. It's like, does he hit every 32? I mean, props to him. I'm not ripping him. I'm just saying it's very funny to me that, and I get it. He's in demand. Obviously, we used to have him, on as a regular on BGN Radio with the QB Sco Show, and then the QB Factory. So we love Mark, but it's very funny.
Our YouTube audience will remember he did our Dak Watch series before we got in a little bit of trouble, but Mark is great.
Wow.
Okay, so my submission is a Spanish name. It is called Mis Deseos / Feliz Navidad. Obviously, everybody's heard of Feliz Navidad, generally speaking. This is a song by Michael Bublé featuring Talia from Michael Bublé's Christmas album. It is an underrated Christmas song in my mind. Obviously, there's a lot of Feliz Navidad kind of ness to it, but it is it's a banger. So obviously, like Rachel, I'm continuing with the Christmas vibes.
Good pick.
Have you heard the song that I picked?
No.
So how do you know it's a good pick? You just lying?
I like Feliz Navidad. So I'm guessing, like you said, there's elements of that. So I'm guessing it's a good pick. I like
Okay.
the
I trust that
concept.
analysis. That's fair. Okay. Your pick.
Anyway, I'm gonna go with December, not Christmas themed necessarily, but December by Neck Deep, which is a really good pop punk band. You don't really see a lot of pop punk anymore in the year 2023, especially newer artists. Obviously, you have like Blink
Mm-hmm.
182 still releasing albums, but newer is relative for Neck Deep, but really good. There's also alternate versions of this song, one by Mark Hoppus, like that version, which is called December Again. And just for the record, we're using just December by Neck Deep as the canonical addition to the playlist. But I would encourage people to check out the alternate versions. The normal version is like acoustic. The Mark Hoppus one's a little more rocky and heavier and faster. That's cool. And then there's what's his name? Chris Carrabba from Dashboard Confessional. And he does a version as well with this band Neck Deep, and that's also really good. So I would check out all three. Really good song. It's kind of like a sad song, but the Eagles are losing, so it's sad.
Okay. Well, so again, you're tying yours. I just like my song. I guess Rachel did tie her song to the
Well, it's
Eagles.
December. It's also thematic to the month.
Right. That's fair. Okay. Well, we'll add those to the playlist. Everybody can check them out. And yeah, anything else before we get out of here?
This is the penultimate episode of the NFC East Mixtape, at least as it relates to the holiday season. So, I mean, we'll talk to you all again next week before the Christmas, but also happy Hanukkah. Hanukkah's going on. So shout out to all those celebrating that and all the other holidays going on. Yeah, looking forward to doing another episode next week.
Along those lines, I posted a photo on Instagram about this. So like everybody says that like Christmas through the eyes of a child is the like most precious thing of all time. Last Saturday, my wife and I took our son to a parade here in town, and the way his eyes truly lit up and everything was something I will like never ever forget in my life. Like it was so powerful just to see like how he experienced it. And so this is a really fun time of year, really magical time of year. And that shouldn't be lost if your football team is doing well or doing poorly too. It's a good time of year.
It's probably the most wholesome NFC East Mixtape moment ever.
It was really cool. Although, there were a lot of people. Sometimes too many people like get away. You know what I mean? I don't want a lot of people.
I support that. Way to balance it out.
Yeah.
Look at this joyous thing, and then get out of my way. Get out of here.
My roommate in college, one time we were like, "Do you want to go here?" And he was like, "No." And we were like, "Why?" He said, "I hate people." So he was like, "There will be people there." So we were just like, "Okay, that makes sense."
I totally feel that. And I have two. Sorry, I did have a final thought. I beat Spider-Man 2. It was really good. No spoilers or anything, but it was great.
I'm only like, I would say like 11% of the way through. So
it's great. I couldn't stop playing it. Like it was just really good. It's awesome. Who you get to play as is very cool, and some of the powers, I will say, are very cool. And I got started on my Assassin's Creed, picking that back up from where I left off, playing Black Flag. So that's also pretty fun. So
did you pick up any new games upon mine or anybody else's recommendations?
I did not yet because I have these to go through, but I added them. I have them in a list that are in my consideration.
I would add, to take things full circle here, this month's free games, if you have like a PS membership, which you have to play online, yes. Obviously. I don't know what the third one is, but the second one, or I guess there are three, and I don't know what one of them is off the top of my head, but one of them is the Power Wash Simulator game, which is what it sounds like. I've never played these.
Go there.
I've never played these kinds of games, but one of my best friends, there's like a lawnmower game, and he loves this game. And there's like a truck driving game, and he loves that one. And I've heard this Power Wash game is a great podcasting game. Like it's a really satisfying thing to do, like while you're listening to podcasts. You know what I mean? So it's free. So add that to your library, maybe check it out. And also the full circle thing, Lego 2K Drive is one of the free games this month. So, shout out to Lego, not a sponsor, but we're always open for opportunities. But what did Lego NFC East Mixtape look like? But what did Lego NFC East Mixtape look like? Like us made out of Lego. Like imagine if somebody like digitized our episodes but we were
Mhm.
Legos.
I feel like can't like Dolly do that or something? One of these AI programs, like if we just enter a screenshot. I don't know. Probably not. Remember the
Dude,
Simpsons filter thing? Remember when that was big? And people would
yeah.
like Simpsonize themselves. That was like, way before any kind of AI thing. That was fun.
Are you ready to leave?
Yeah.
As we leave, say any 2 words.
Any 2 words.